It's about it, it's okay. That's what I want to have. No, we always.
Yeah.
Motion to come out of executive session.
I'll make that.
Correct. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 19:45. Okay. Want to read it?
Yeah, will be a resolution to hire Stephen Allison as a EBO 1 for the Town of Montgomery Highway Department. Start date as recommended by our acting highway superintendent Todd Page. Start date August 19th. We'll start at for the CBA step 5 salary at hours, I apologize.
25-21,
$25.21
step 5.
per hour, which is a step 5 under the CBA.
Yes.
And he will have a 6-month probationary period, which
And it's to fill a vacancy.
is to fill a vacancy, correct, as there has been changes in the highway department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay. There was one other thing that we had added on. I don't know if we got it.
We do a couple of supplements there, chief.
What's that?
We do a couple
Yeah,
of
the
supplements.
IDA.
Yes, IDA was added on. There was an email from, Mr. Chris. There was 2 people that applied. Well, I think, Mr. Santos' name came up in the audience tonight. John Mascio. I'm saying that right. Mr. Mascio sent his application in, everybody get that?
Yes.
Mr., I was got an email on the July 31st for Mr. Bob Santos has a discussion about willingness to be on the Montgomery IDA board, a longtime Montgomery resident and a public servant, many years on the VC Valley Central School Board District. I support him and the MIDA. I said, he's currently on the ethics board and a great patriot. Do we have 1 or 2 positions on that? 2.
Because you resigned.
Mhm.
And Devin, correct?
He was the chairman,
Right, but he's off.
but Mr. Chris took his place. Yeah.
No, but Jeff,
It's still open.
I think there is 2 openings.
no, I know there's 2
Okay,
openings.
all right, so we're good. My memory served me, there was, yeah.
Right.
Do we want to, there's discussion on anything else, as far as I'm good at
I'll
pointing?
go with those people.
Got a
Questions?
motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
We do both at the same time, or we do one at a time?
Do it.
All right, just like, let's do, Mr. Bob Santos, you still willing to be on the IDA board, sir?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for your service.
I'll make-
Motion for Mr. Santos,
I'll
Make that motion.
I'll second.
thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Does he have to resign from the ethics board?
is that a,
I'm going to, I'll look into that.
we're gonna look into the ethics board, that was a question I had earlier, I don't know if that's a conflict or something.
We discussed it, and we couldn't think of a conflict, but I do know enough that if one arises, I can recuse myself.
Exactly, that's what we were thinking too, I didn't think there was anything, yeah, okay, we'll check on it, double check on it, just make sure, but thank you, sir. I'm gonna do terrible on this name here, but there's also John, Macioce.
That's yours.
Yeah, I'll go with that, thank you. All right, any member want to make a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That's it, any other business?
A couple of supplements.
Oh, great.
What's the dates? July 18th and July 25th, but if you start with May 16th, Doug, Dan had a few small typographical errors.
What was the date on that?
May 16th.
I'll make a motion that the minutes of May 16th be corrected, or be accepted as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the next set is July 18th. Again, couple minor changes, typographical errors.
Make a motion that the minutes of July 18th be accepted as amended.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the last set was a special meeting from July 25th, and we found one small error there too, where I forgot the word they.
They.
Make a motion that the minutes of July 25th be accepted as amended.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dempsey.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else, anybody else have any business? Good. To, privilege of the floor for supervisor. Basically, this is a public comment. It's not a public hearing. I'd like to have everybody be civil, courteous, respectful to the law, especially when people in the audience. Intellectual enthusiasm is valued. I appreciate that. I'm gonna start from the first, like I did last time, the first row, work my way back, because we have a lot of speakers, can't tell. But I'll start from my first row, work my way back to the back of the room, and start from this row and work my way back to that room. You have five minutes, and I thank everybody for coming and actually speaking. Yes.
Well, I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up, just give your name and address, please. My microphone might not be on. Let me just check. Saving batteries. Yeah, you don't have to get too close to them, I don't think. Pretty much, yeah, you don't have to speak, you can be a distance from it.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You don't have to be right on top of it, just talk natural.
All right, I'm just gonna read a letter. My name is Maria Beltrametti, 109 North Street in Montgomery, and I'm reading a letter that was published in this week's edition of the Wallkill Valley Times. Who's afraid of a moratorium? A moratorium means we hit pause. A moratorium is a step back to look at the big picture. A moratorium is the easy answer to our current development crisis. These are the facts. The town of Montgomery has 8 warehouses proposed for the 17K Route 211 corridor, half of them on spec. As has been reported by this paper, the town's building department is, quote, understaffed, underfunded, and unable to keep up with projects already underway, end quote. The town's master plan is almost 30 years old, and the process to update it has just begun. Medline is not a done deal. The project is proposed for a site barely half a mile from the village of Montgomery and requires a special use permit to build 250 loading docks in a zone that currently allows 3. This permit has not been issued yet. All concerned citizens need to attend a public hearing on August 11th at 7 p.m. in the Valley Central Middle School cafeteria to demand a 6-month moratorium. Our town board has the power to declare such a moratorium on industrial development to allow time to address the matter comprehensively with an updated master plan. Don't forget that we will elect a town supervisor and 2 board members in November, and the time is now for candidates to take a stand and articulate their visions for our future. The only party to this matter that's in a hurry is Medline. Projects of this scale, including the Sailfish project, cannot go forward without thorough vetting before construction and without a well-resourced building department to supervise the work. Only a moratorium can provide the breathing room to do the job properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, anybody in the second row there? Back, just raise your hand as you go back. Yes, sir.
Well, I just don't wanna say what she said, but yeah, that's what we want, that's what we all want.
Come on up and
There's a
speak, microphone.
My name's Bill Lobb, I live in Montgomery, and we wanna know why we can't have a moratorium on this, and then just stop this insanity, that's what I wanna know, that's what we all wanna know.
Thank you.
We don't get any answers on this. Well, is there a reason why we can't get this?
This is public comment. Thank
That was
you.
my public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Good job.
Next. Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
My name is Karina Tipton. I live on 225 Union Street in Montgomery.
Welcome.
Thank you. I've started attending these meetings most recently in the winter. I lived here for 10 years, and I'm sorry to say I didn't take an active role in local governance until I saw the announcement for Sailfish in the newspaper in the winter of 2018. I've been attending meetings as regularly as I can, given my commuting schedule, my family schedule, and my other commitments. And since then, I've seen applicants declare to the planning board that their projects are feasible based on allocation of town resources for infrastructure improvements that this board has not agreed to or voted on. They're saying, yes, we can absolutely do those things as long as the town allocates my taxpayer money towards these infrastructure improvements before it even goes to you guys. I've seen the Zoning Board of Appeals allocate code enforcement in perpetuity to a citizen who happens to be a neighbor of a site because of a code enforcement. The code officer has made a determination. The Zoning Board of Appeals decides that that individual, at their own cost, expense, and attention, will enforce that determination. And I'm happy to go over these with you later if you'd like. In perpetuity, as far as I can tell, taking the role of governance entirely out of your hands and applying it to a citizen. I've seen the planning board overwhelmed. Like, I don't know these guys personally. They appear to be totally overwhelmed. I'm not sure if you guys talk to them frequently. I'm not sure if you engage in the planning board process. They've got dozens and dozens of huge projects in front of them, and they are overwhelmed. They are besieged by applicants and by their counsel. I've seen counsel for these applicants called upon for record points, asking people in the audience, lawyers for the applicants, what did we decide to do? That's not the role of the counsel for the applicant. I've seen no minutes. I mean, I know you guys are catching up. I haven't seen minutes for the planning board since May. I mean, it's hard to keep up if you're not able to come to these meetings. We're finally getting some more friends and residents coming to these meetings, but it's a big onus on us to be able to fit this in, to just kind of understand what you guys are doing. I've also seen a crumbling infrastructure, right? Like, I've spoken about this before. There's trucks parking wherever they can because the truck stops are full every night. The roads are crumbling in front of people's houses. People's foundations are crumbling because of the increased amount of truck traffic. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the staffing. We don't have the willpower. We don't have the people available to make these important decisions. We need a moratorium so we can take a step back, we can pause, we can regroup. There's no shame in regrouping. What we need to do is to stop moving forward blindly because we're being pushed from behind by the applicants and by their legal counsel. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Hi, my name is Shariza Hawkins and I live in Montgomery. I have a letter and I'd like to read it. Sorry, I caught in my hair. It's a magic moment. Dear Supervisor Wenchel, the town of Montgomery has experienced a tremendous onslaught from corporations and businesses seeking to build warehouses here. We must take a critical look at the impact of this type of growth, evaluating its true impact on our resources, infrastructure and natural, our character, our sellable future, our sellable identity for the future, constituent home values, and quality of life impacts. It is a very exciting time to know there is such interest in our location that we are so desirous. Sadly, we do not have the current tools to perform the work of properly addressing both the business wants and residents' needs. Our master plan is from the last century, when cell phones were brick size, now outdated and inefficient for today's demands. So too is our master plan. knowing one needs the proper tool to do the proper job, I am requesting the town initiate a moratorium on warehouses. There have been zoning changes requested and granted, not just a one-off event, but enough in number to make it abundantly clear that we are not in a position to properly handle the growth pressure of today's market. Such actions would not be required if the proper tools were in place. There are proposed car dealerships being placed but a parcel away from the town's high school, middle school. Proposed warehouses nested in residential areas and along almost every major road to our town. Does this really reflect a beautiful place for visitors to come and be a revenue stream for local businesses? Does it set the stage for community growing businesses to come here? Does it set the stage for prospective high wage paying businesses to settle here? Or does it more embrace the impact of being the back end of a warehouse district, where every place one travels, it won't take much to see a landscape of metal monoliths, fume-spewing trucks, and hear the cacophony of beepers, jake braking, and engines rumbling. Some proposed warehouses are more than, or near to being, half the size of the second largest football stadium complex in the United States. I have lived in this town for most of my life. I left to serve my country in the USAF and travel both nationally and internationally. I came back to here. I worked in Goshen as a correction officer. I worked at Thomas Bull Memorial Park, at Orange County Airport, and I was a linesman at Stewart International Airport in 1981 and 82. I raised my family here. I returned because of what this town has. Montgomery is a jewel to be cherished, not tarnished. Our history is woven with historic figures of the Revolution, the discovery of the Mastodon giving this young nation's U.S. president world stage value. We have the second largest park in the county, a beautiful river. We have rolling hills and villages full of unique history, all right to garner tourist revenue. It is a location accessible from 2 airports, major highways, railways. From here, our town, you in fact can go everywhere. That is a gift others see and want to use. We can do more than become a crudely mashed together location, better known as a truck stop in the scenic, historic Hudson Valley, than one that is for exploration, enjoyment, and living. It must be recognized by you, the town supervisor, and the board members, that there is a reoccurring sound. It is like a buoy bell warning of a dangerous shoal to a mariner. It is the voice of this town's residents calling attention to real concerns with what is happening here. It is a warning that what we have, we wish to maintain, properly nurture, and grow is about to crash. You are responsible for what will come to fruition as you are currently the captain and the officers of this beautiful ship, our town. Should your decision be to maintain full speed ahead without listening to the warning knell, can only bring about results no one wants to live with, surely we can come together to create a map for qualitative growth. Yes, accommodating, proper, well-placed, and thought-out industry. Hearing your residents clearly, looking to the future, the next generation's needs and wants, driving a future filled with value for all. Stop, as you have done for solar, and create a temporary moratorium. And do not ask for who the bell tolls, for it tolls for you. Thank you. And I'd like to
ma'am. Welcome.
Hi, Nina Snyder, Montgomery. So this is very short because the previous speakers have been so eloquent.
Yes, you go.
And you don't even need the 5 minute, I'm 1 minute. I just wanna tell you that I think of my elected officials, and I think that to get to where you're at, you must have logic, you must be rational, you must have a care for your community, and it's been loud and clear in the newspapers, at all of these meetings, that the people who live here are really, really upset and worried and concerned. So I wanna pose to you, I'm looking for courage, because when I think of leadership, I also think of courage. And that's what I'm finding to be lacking, because I'm not hearing, like, when I came to the meeting where James Farr talked about all these delinquent, behind stuff. If this was my home, I would take a stop and I'd be like, I gotta clean this up. So like, I'm looking to you for courage, to take a stand, to be proactive, to hear the people that elected you, and to do something with it. And so far, I feel like we're just kind of spinning. And one last point, if you're afraid of being sued by the attorneys representing these big warehouses, I want you to take it on as a resident, because I care that much about my community.
Next, Senator Rebecca. Get back there. The ladies first, actually. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you for the privilege of the floor. I have listened to these meetings for months, forming an opinion that I was not going to share in fear of retaliation as a business owner in this village. But it's not in me to sit idly by when I can try to do something. At my first town board meeting, I was told that this is our fault. Maybe the longtime residents for not paying attention, sorry guys. For years, they have blindly trusted our elected officials, but it's not my fault. It's not the people in this room's fault. We are here, we are paying attention, and we are ready to act. I was told at this same meeting, it's too late. That is a cop-out. It is too uncomfortable, too scary, too hard, but not too late. You could simply choose the committee to update the comprehensive plan. That alone would halt any requirement to approve any project that has yet to break ground without the risk of a lawsuit. You could call a 3-month moratorium while we hire an adequate number of inspectors to oversee the 3 projects being expedited through currently. Time is not up, you simply don't want to. I have worked till the 13th hour to build something from nothing my entire life, while those around have doubted, ducked out, and given up. That is a value that I'm instilling in my children, one of whom is here in the front row, and one that I expect from my elected officials and those appointed by them. My 13-year-old came to the meeting on Monday and had questions regarding air quality, noise pollution, etc., and my response to her was a lesson in due diligence, something you have failed to do as well. I have told her to do her research on the community you want to live in, Madison, its projects and its plans, so that you don't end up like mommy, saving the income you earned in a village for 7 years to purchase a home in that village, only to find your investment and your livelihood at risk. The only statements I'm ever met with when showing interest in making a change here are, that's not how we've always done it, or that's how we've always done it. This is a mindset that has gotten us here, not Medline, not Amazon. It is our out-of-date plans, antiquated policies, and backdoor handshake practices that have gotten us here. We were all complacent. Our boards are complacent. Because of that, we have failed to accomplish what towns like Cornwall have, insulating the community from undesirable builders and irresponsible building. The egregious amount of conflicts of interest on all of these boards, the backwards thinking, the fact that the members are sleeping and on their phones during these meetings is how we got here. You all on these boards stand united against your own constituents, hiding behind these loopholes and policies, and the insane amount of trust that we have put in you. Your complacency and lack of ongoing training, revisions of laws, and plans has left us open to just about every undesirable outcome possible in this circumstance. The boards have a responsibility currently to call a moratorium to work with the citizens in order to move forward with these projects. A pause will allow us to restructure, compromise, hire, and plan properly without being sued. The answer is not no building, it's responsible building. It's unsafe currently to move forward due to the lack of inspectors, questionable DEIS findings, coupled with insufficient time to look over them. In conclusion, do not tell me it's too late. You can hit pause to ignore your constituents and press on to line your pockets and avoid suits filed on behalf of Medline, who, by the way, is represented by a firm whose partners are residents of this community, just in case you didn't know that. Is corrupt, unethical, and unacceptable. I have worked too hard to let my investments in this community lose their financial and social value. If you are unwilling to fulfill the requirements of your position, move over and make room at the table for someone who will. Let's stop doing how we always have done it and move forward together. Respectfully yours.
I'll go get a donut there, man. Thank you.
Don Berger, Montgomery. I'm gonna be real quick. You know, I've been coming to these meetings for a long time. What I really get out of these meetings here is how great these people are. And the stuff that they come up here and they speak and the manner in which they speak is absolutely phenomenal. What they've, how they've researched everything, they seem to me to know a hell of a lot more that's going on with these projects than you do. We've asked questions, we don't get answers. But these people seem to get the answers. They research everything. And they come up here, meeting after meeting after meeting, and we get no responses from you guys. That's kind of annoying. So the one thing I was wanted to clarify is that you did put out the legal notice to form the committee for the comprehensive plan. In reading that, I didn't see an end game to the receiving applicants to that committee. I was wondering, when does that end? When do you start choosing your committee members to move forward on the comprehensive plan? Or is this just going on and on and on and on? Do we have an end game for this committee of choice? There must be an end game for when you're going to stop receiving applicants, but I didn't see any mention of that in the paper.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Robert Jones. I live on 210 Union Street, gateway into the beautiful village of Montgomery. I am for a moratorium from Land Use Moratoria by James A. Kuhn. A moratorium is designed to halt development temporarily pending the completion and possible adoption of more permanent comprehensive regulations. The objective of municipal land use controls is to promote community planning values by properly regulating land development, while the police power is the authority possessed by municipal governments to take action to advance the public health, safety, and welfare. When trucks go by my house at night, they shake my pipes, they make a lot of noise, they wake me up. That's not helping me. And I don't think a 32-acre sized warehouse with proposed 360 tractor trailers going in and out every day is going to help my general welfare. On adopting local laws in New York State by James A. Kuhn, the police power has been defined generally as the power to regulate persons and property for the purpose of securing the public health, safety, welfare, comfort, peace, and prosperity of the municipality and its inhabitants. Village of Carthage versus Frederick, cited in law. The power is as old as is the organization of municipalities. What the Montgomery Town Board and Planning Board officials must now consider is a moratorium on the present and ceaseless expansion of warehouses, particularly reflected upon the size and scope of Medline and Sailfish. Again, from land use moratoria, the enactment of temporary restrictions on development has been held to be a valid exercise of police power, where the restrictions are reasonable and related to public health, safety, and general welfare. Local governments can enact a moratorium for a broad range of reasons. Land use moratoria are appropriate mechanisms for addressing long-range community planning and zoning objectives, not to be overrun by a 32-acre warehouse. Again, from land use moratoria, the moratorium may be general, imposing a ban on all development approvals throughout the community, or specific to one land use or a particular zoning district. For example, a moratorium can halt the review projects currently before the boards, acceptance of new development applications, site plan, subdivision, and special permits, which we have in existence now, and/or issuance of water and sewer connection permits. Again, from land use moratoria, the most common type of moratorium is on land use approvals. These enactments are appropriate mechanisms for addressing long-range community planning and zoning objectives. I would hope this board accepts the fact that the public needs your help. We need a moratorium. As many town officials may know by now, the town board has begun the process of updating the town of Montgomery 1988 comprehensive plan and is looking for volunteers to serve on the committee. Because the town of Montgomery needs a serious update to their comprehensive plan, a moratorium should be seriously considered and commenced. Because of the sheer size and scope of Medline and Sailfish's warehouse structures, using a stopgap zoning is to allow a local legislative body, pending decision upon the adoption of a comprehensive zoning ordinance, to take reasonable measures temporarily to protect the public interest and welfare until the ordinance is finally adopted. You can stall whatever, reasonably. Otherwise, the eventual comprehensive zoning ordinance might be of no avail from land use moratoria. At the moment, the town board has commenced their quest for a new comprehensive plan, which it desperately requires, while the town leaders now need to consider a moratorium to preserve the general welfare and well-being of the citizens of Montgomery. The community and its everyday citizens need to come first, not last or behind Orange County Partnership or the financial whims of a $10 billion corporation who's seeking tax subsidies. Great capitalistic idealism, subsidies for the $10 billion organization.
Mr. Jones, that was your 5 minutes, just so you know.
Okay. Considering the environmental impact of the U-30.
Well over 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
It's almost
Welcome.
Hi, Susan Cochran, Town of Montgomery.
Is that on?
No, it's not on.
Push the button. Your green light on.
What'd you do to it, Bob? No, I haven't. I can talk loud.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
we hear you.
Yes. You're not that loud, too.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Usually do wet laundry on the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cockburn, Town of Montgomery. I want to agree with Randy that it can be intimidating for people because when you have a business in town, case in point, you timing me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, man.
Fair's fair.
When I had town board meetings, I never timed anyone. I welcomed all discussion before, during, and after. Okay? Because you need to hear from us to make your decisions. So, now, turn it over again, because now I'm starting. Listen.
I got spares.
Camille's at the Crossroads was boycotted just because I worked there and I knew Chris Camillo, okay? They lost business because I was active in town board meetings. And that's why people like Randy and other local businesses have to worry about it. They also sit underwater now, and the property's for sale because so much runoff went down. And you can talk to the people with the ice cream, Tracy. Her property is wet now too. There's been a lot of lax behavior, and I know you just came on. When I came into office, all the files were gone. I had to get the state police and the BCI to come through. When you took office, you found buildings and municipal principal properties, capital investments, deteriorating and falling apart fast. Case in point is the highway barn, okay? I'm not saying it to you, but this board, these meetings don't have to be happening this way with the timer. I think the public needs to know that there was 3 reports done. The white paper report for 416 and 211 from the Village of Montgomery to Hamptonburg. That study was done by Alan Sorensen specifically for uses of property exactly what everybody's here having their life investment threatened by. The other one was being planning. They did from the Village of Montgomery to Newburgh on 17K and from 208 from Maybrook to Walden. All that was studied. Dan and Mark, you voted on both of those, and you were also on the board when I had an economic development study funded through grants for the entire town. What did you do? You got Hayes in, you let the master plan go, you never did anything, you never, not one person here ever looked. I mean, I was freaking out when all the files were missing because I wanted to do the work. You had things and you didn't even look at them. You didn't even implement what was before you and paid for with tax dollars and the funding that I got in. So this doesn't have to be happening like this if you did your jobs. And I'm saying this now because the public can access those documents just like they've been researching all these companies with their corporate welfare that are now being pushed on us with an infrastructure that cannot possibly handle it. Case in point is what was done to Crossroads Restaurant by all this building with one building inspector, no stormwater enforcement officer, and an engineer that doesn't know what's going on, okay? This doesn't have to happen. I'm not putting it on you because I see that you have been met with many obstacles, and it's a shame. But this town is sliding way back really fast ever since Hayes took office, and all the grants and funding that were coming in just went. You never did a thing with them, not Benedict Park, not anything. So these people have a right to talk way more than whatever that is in that bottle. I got news for you. You should be able to talk your money's worth in taxes spent before your property becomes looking out of bay windows at a gigantic, hideous warehouse with bumper-to-bumper trucks.
Yes, ma'am. You don't have to get rid of that microphone, it picks up pretty good.
Okay. Beverly Mertz, Village of Montgomery. I'm going to finish what Bob Jones' time ran out on.
All right.
So, continuing Bob Jones' letter, considering the environmental impact of a huge 32-acre warehouse and the daily voluminous traffic that will overwhelm Route 416 in the neighboring community, the case of Landmaster versus Town of Montgomery in 2006 coincides with Judge Joseph Owens' education, wherein, in this context, environmental concerns include not only impacts on the physical environment, but also the impacts upon population patterns, neighborhood character, and the community in general. Whereby, on April 6, 2007, the town of Montgomery adopted an ethics and disclosure law whereby the citizenry of the town of Montgomery are entitled to the expectation of exemplary ethical behavior in their officers, employees, and appointed officials, and this law is intended to create the minimum standards which constitute that behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, thank you also. Did we skip over you?
Yeah. He's first.
Come on up, you're first. Yep. Welcome.
You haven't seen Feisty yet. My name is Fred Mertz, and my wife just followed me. Living in the village and seeing all the projects going up, and you're making the decisions of where they go, when they go up, and all that. Put yourself in the people's shoes that live that area. Would it still go if that was your house, that was your children that are playing with the construction going on, with the possibility of them getting hurt or even killed? What method, if you were to, would you do beyond the public speaking like this of trying to prevent all that for your family? Look at Goodwill Road, for example. The houses there's children playing in the yard and heavy duty equipment right above them. So before you make a decision, look at the area, look at the people, then put yourself in that home, and then make a decision.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Welcome. John Brown, Browns Road in Coldenham. Two things. One is I've already brought to Supervisor Winchell's attention a local law that was put in place by Town of Crawford regarding definitions of an auto sales yard, which they enacted. It's in last week's Waukegan Valley Times, the actual text of it. And what that law has done is clarify in their zoning code the definition of used car sales. And what I encourage is our board to look at that law and look at putting that in place or an equivalent version of that, so that other residents of this town won't have to go through the thousands and thousands of dollars and 6 months of turmoil that I went through on a project affecting our property. I think it's a very reasonable local law. It's also consistent with what other municipalities around this area have done in regards to their zoning. So Supervisor Winch, I know you have a copy of it, and I hope it can be passed along.
Yes.
And that the board can look at that. And that's something that can be put in place in a month or two's time. It's something very quickly that can be done to solve an ongoing problem. The second quick thing is in regards to stormwater runoff. As you know, I've been following Project Sailfish, again, because that impacts our family farm. One of the big things that affects us is the runoff that will occur into the Tin Brook, and not just on our farm, but on other properties that are adjacent to that, wetlands, and anyone on the Tin Brook downstream of that. I'm well familiar with the local law that was put in place in 2005 by this town, and it was expressly put in place so that when new developments came in, you would not create a situation where the runoff of that new development affected other people around it, next to it or downstream. In fact, it was Local Law 1 of 2005, which is now incorporated in our zoning code. Now, by closely looking at the DEIS documents of Sailfish, that law is not being enforced. They have millions of gallons of extra runoff which goes on adjacent properties and downstream. So it is my contention that that project is not conforming to a local law, and I believe that the planning board does not have the authority to waive local laws. So I'm asking the town board to take action to ensure that their local laws are in fact enforced and monitored on these type of projects, because it does have significant impact. I'm well familiar with that because in my role in supporting the town as planning board chair, I work to make sure that law was enforced on projects, and I hope that that can be enforced because it really benefits all residents of our community by not having their property values destroyed by new projects. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Barbara Lerner. This morning, and I know you guys are really busy, this morning at a special meeting with the planning board, they fast-tracked Sailfish. At the same time, the FEIS is now going to be published for use. At the same time, everybody here, in addition to the 3,800 or 4,000 pages for Sailfish, everyone here is already reviewing Medline in their DEIS stage. They are overwhelmed. The boards are overwhelmed. But by fast-tracking this project, it puts you under the gun to really strongly consider the wording of a moratorium that would be fair to everybody here and prevent out-of-control growth. The only way that we can move forward is by really addressing the needs of our community, that live here, and our future, our children. I don't know anybody who has kids where your kids grow up and say, I want to work in a warehouse picking stuff. My grandson wants to be an auto mechanic. That's what he wants to do. It's not as though I'm picking and choosing types of labor, but warehouse labor is a thing of the past. So much of this is becoming mechanized now. It's becoming roboticized. It's not, this isn't the future, it's the past. And to build these mega warehouses that are game changers for our community, there is no turning back. Doesn't make sense. When you allow the first one to go through without full thought process, without full oversight, without due diligence, without researching why Blue Water Industrial isn't Blue Water Industrial anymore, it's now Blue Water Partners, or Blue Water Property, and there are two other partners. And why did I know about that in March, but the planning board didn't know about that until July? Something is wrong. And I know that you are overwhelmed with work. I understand. Everybody has another job, you have another business. As do I, as does everybody that is here. But we have to put the brakes on now, and you are running out of time. You work for us. You represent us. Do right by us. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Oh. She's been dying to get up here. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Tom Walcott. I'm from the village of Maybrook. I wanted to make reference on a few procedural issues that I've encountered. I'm new to this. I'm in the learning phase. I was at the meeting this morning. That was at 9 a.m. My problem with that situation was the notification. To me, it violated the open meeting laws. There was a bit of a discussion about it this morning, and I feel that the town planning board had this in place on the meeting they had the 29th. They said that they did not contemplate having everything done, but they had it done. So on the 30th, I assume 9 o'clock in the morning when you're open for business. It was posted online, but it wasn't time-stamped. So Tuesday morning, and then we had the meeting this morning. At best, it was a 48-hour notification. And it was quote-unquote a special meeting. It wasn't an emergency type situation. It was done 9 o'clock in the morning when most people are gainfully employed. So there was minimal attendance. And I think that was the intent behind it. As was noted earlier, this expedited this entire approval process. And it moved it, I think it was originally scheduled for August 12th. So it moved it up approximately 2 more weeks in favor of the applicant, not the public. And the reason that we were given that it was scheduled as early as possible was that it was a transparency issue. The town planning board stated that they wanted the general public to be able to access this information. And I don't believe that statement. I think it was done on behalf of the applicant, not the public. I also want to point out, as far as New York State open meeting laws, it says that the minutes of open meetings must be made available within 2 weeks of the meeting. It has been suggested if the minutes have not been approved, that they be marked draft, unapproved, or non-final when they're disclosed. I went on the Town of Montgomery website, and the last planning board meetings that were on there was for May 13th. And the last board meetings were May 20th. So it's way behind. And as I said, I'm trying to educate myself, but if I'm accessing information from May 20th and May 13th, it's not current with what New York State open meeting laws require. Also, during the planning board meeting that I attended on the 29th, and then the DE statement that was available to the public, just about every category that was addressed in these environmental reviews, it states, applicant does not anticipate that the proposed action will have a significant impact on, and you can fill in the blank, whether it be the environment, police protection that the town has to afford, fire, that the fire districts have to afford. That's their determination. They hire the consultants, they put a favorable spin on whatever they're trying to propose. And I don't believe it's objective. I think the planning board has to do due diligence and really study what's being put into these reports. As far as fire, I've been a fireman for 46 years. And the amount of volunteers that we have has substantially decreased. And this is a nationwide problem. This isn't just a regional problem or a town of Montgomery problem. In 1983, there were 884,000 volunteers nationwide. In 2017, the most current number I could get is 682,000. So we've had over 200,000 volunteer decrease.
That's your 5-minute mark. I want to wrap up.
Well,
You can have my 5 minutes.
Just
Unfortunately, that's not the rules of our board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Patricia Hennigan from Walden. Actually, I'm here, I do support the moratorium, but I'm here on a different matter. Both Tom Steed and I requested to be listed on the agenda for this matter, but I don't know exactly why we couldn't be listed, but anyway, it's a little off of the topic of discussion, but I think it's important. So I'm really here for a spokesperson for the Town of Montgomery Conservation Advisory Council. And we were established to protect and preserve the town's natural resources and involve and educate residents in programs and workshops for this purpose. In 2008, we completed the Natural Resources Inventory, which I hope everybody has a copy of and should be familiar with. We are in the process now, we're working 2 years on updating this document, which I hope will also be looked at in terms of working on a comprehensive plan. We do reviews for both the planning board and the town board. Some of our projects involve doing rain barrel workshops several times, and using at Benedict Farm Park, we use the barn to store equipment for this. We also worked on Trees for Trips. We've been doing that for nearly 10 years. Many of our plantings are at Benedict Farm Park. We've had bluebird building workshops involving scouts and placing these all around Benedict Farm Park. To get to the main point of this, the community garden was established in 2009. It was started with volunteer labor and community donations. And after 10 years, it is a showcase for the town. It provides a place for people to grow food and enjoy nature. Some produce is donated to the food pantry. Also, the bee and butterfly garden and the beehive support our pollinators. Most towns would welcome such contributions to the community. However, our CAC has been almost rooted out of this building completely. Our cabinet display in the lobby was moved to underneath the stairwell where nobody would notice it. Our small storage area was taken apart without talking to us. We were given a desk surface in the planning office. And last week, when I went to look for our projects, we found we no longer had that desk. Possibly due to this, I only received the letter from FAR Engineering as a group email sent to the gardeners, even though it was sent to Tom Steed as president of the garden. And so the letter I'm referring to is from FAR Engineering, and they said, I've reviewed the barn at Benedict Farm Park, and they were concerned about the gasoline stored in the mower that's used in the community garden. And it says, then he says they reportedly belong to the persons responsible for maintaining the community garden. These are community volunteers doing the town a favor by keeping the garden and the area around it a beautiful place. Our CAC has used the barn for over 10 years for different purposes. If there is a fire hazard, then that is something the town should step forward to address for the community garden. We are part of the town. And I'd like to ask Tom Steed to continue this because we kind of worked on this together. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber, this is broken.
Hi, everybody. Tom Steed, Montgomery, and you know our parks are a more pleasant topic to talk about, and they're all of Montgomery's treasures. But I really believe Benedict Farm, the community garden, is the crown jewels of all of Montgomery's treasures. And I'm here to answer Mr. Jamie Farr's letter about his concern about combustible materials. And I answered you, Supervisor Windsor, and I CC'd Todd, you know, it is my opinion that his request is reasonable and prudent. I don't want to see anything happen to our barn or anything in Benedict Farm Park. So, you know, sometimes, Todd, you overcomplicate matters, you know? And I said, wait a minute, all we have to do is, at Mr. Farr's request, is remove all the combustible materials from the barn. So this is simple. Removing all the gas cans, even if the ones that are empty. And I bought this gas shuttle valve. The way it works, when you finish using a lawnmower, you turn the gas off to the carburetor, run it out until it stalls. Then you drain all the gas in a tank into a container with a funnel on it, and you take that home with you too. Now you've got a bone-dry tractor in the barn that has absolutely no combustible material in it, and there's no gas tanks in the barn. So this is a simple solution. You know, if you have any objections, any comments, any concurrence, you know, I'd like to hear it.
Just one quick thing, the gas cans there was actually gas spilled and there was gas cans all over the barn, but you needed a safety cabinet or something that the barn was going to be used for that purpose.
Right. Well,
we all have to have a safety cabinet to put our combustibles in, even in our businesses or anywhere else. That's one of the big things. So, you know, that would solve the problem no matter where we store the gasoline. That has to be in a cabinet.
Yeah, we only really need one can to mow. You know,
many cans there.
I'm taking.
It was in a straw, the hay, it was all over the place.
Yeah, I'm removing even the empty cans.
The barn the chance of burning that down was very likely at that point.
Right, but like I said, we're going to eliminate all combustible material that we see in the barn. You know, so you know, just one other thing. You know, a lot of people said, Tom, who complained? And I said, look, the supervisor has to investigate the complaint. And the complaint is confidential between the supervisor. But so is executive session. And this town council has the privilege to ask that question. Because don't forget, 11 days after Mr. Farr's report was issued on June 29th, our tractor was vandalized in that barn. Maybe there's a mirror image here. Who knows? But that's all I got, Todd. I mean, Rod. Sorry.
I was in the barn with Walden Humane Society when when I noticed the gas cans were on the floor and there was actually spilled gas and oil everywhere.
Right.
That's where we're trying to figure out how to clean up to use it for the Walden Humane Society.
Right.
And I realized that the tractor was leaking and there was other stuff there too.
Our tractor was leaking?
Yes. In the barn, yeah.
Okay. Well,
that's what I took pictures. So there was quite a few people with us. So I don't know if anybody else complained.
All right.
It was the Walden Humane Society, so that was when I noticed it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to make sure that tractor is bone dry, not leaking a drop of anything, and you know, it's a simple solution, and I think it's responsible and prudent. We keep our barn fireproof as we can, and we're going to do our best to do that. So I'm finished if nobody else has anything. Oh, remember, August. Woodstock's 50 years old. Peace.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm from Walden. I utilize the Montgomery Park for gardening.
Welcome.
I have a little problem. I drive a big, giant, old handicap van when a wife sits in the back, all tied down with straps and everything. And to be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed in you guys for putting 3 bumper things in that road over there. If I break my van going over that, would you mind paying for it? I'm serious. I'm not allowed to have a job, man. I'm a full-time caregiver. You put 3 of them there. Is it all right with you if I drive around them on the other side through the grass? Do you care? If I break my van going over, I'm going to be very unhappy, and I'm not too sure you're going to be too happy with me either, because you put 3 of them there. I don't know what else to say about that, but the other question I have is, a lot of times I find when people are making new buildings, if you're talking about doing a new bathroom, do you ever think about putting a unisex bathroom and connected to that so handicapped people can have access? Because you got thousands of people around you And people always say, well, I never see them. I said, well, that's because nobody seems to really care what access you really give them. It's a lot of BS when you walk into a business, they got a handicap thing on the wall, you can't even get a handicap chair in the bathroom. I know because I've been into, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I don't care what anybody says, not even you guys, I've been in probably over 1,000 ladies' bathrooms. Because my wife is quadriplegic, and when she wants to take a poo, she's going to the potty. There's been a lot of times I can't get her into a bathroom because a man's not supposed to go there. We knock on the door, we have somebody come and give us a hand, a supervise a little thing, get her into a handicap stall, she takes care of her business, and I leave. When you do a project in the future, do you think maybe you could install unisex bathrooms so that the thousands of people who might want to come visit can get out of their house for a change, so that a husband and a wife can help each other, or a wife helps her husband in and out of a bathroom? Handicap accessibility is not really what it needs to be. Everybody likes to put up signs and say, yeah, it's available. It's not available. I find the only place that I've really found a bathroom really available for handicapped people in any place around here is Walmart. I never have a problem getting into a bathroom. There are lots of people who use wheelchairs that don't have access to a lot of places. A lot of people close their eyes when they see them coming, and I hear a lot of people say, well, I never really see them. You don't see them because they don't feel welcome. You can walk, run, hop, skip, and jump in this world. They gotta roll. And when you got people that gotta roll with wheelchairs and other things, and they need people to help them out, you're not really giving them full access. They are human beings, and they would like to be able to get out of their houses and go places just like you and me. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Anyone towards the back? Couple sleepers? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Capello. I'm an attorney with Jacobowitz and Gubitz and a residence and business owner in the village of Walman. I'm one of the people, I think, that has been mentioned tonight. Our office does represent Medline, and I'm here listening on behalf of Medline. And I want to thank everybody who commented here, because this, I think, was a productive comment. I think the comments were focused on the concerns of the residents, and when a building this size is proposed, it is legitimate to have concerns. I thank everybody for their comments and for focusing on the issues such as traffic, stormwater, ratables that will be of concern to all of us as residents of the area. I would correct one thing. The first woman who spoke said the hearing is on August 11th. The hearing's on August 13th at the middle school. One of the things I did want to talk about when we talk about zoning is a balance. So when you look at the community and you look at what we love, all of us, about Montgomery, is a lot of open space. But you have to look at, there was a vision, and that vision was actually started by Carl Hellstrom, and I'm around long enough to know him, that the focus of development for the town of Montgomery was the Neelytown Road corridor. And because of that Neelytown Road corridor, many of my neighbors in Walden, folks in Maybrook, folks in Montgomery who love this community are able to live in this community because of the tax burden that the Neelytown Road corridor provides to this town. If you looked at the type of home that you would buy, that you live in the town of Montgomery, that you would live in some of these communities that folks have mentioned, like town of Cornwall, town of Warwick, town of Goshen, and what your school tax bill would be, it would likely be almost double. So, and that is literally, we'll provide, I mean, that is part of the balance. Also, a lot of the ratables that you've gotten from the Neelytown Road corridor has gone to fund the purchase and development rights that the town of Montgomery has always been one of the leaders on, to permanently preserve open space in the areas throughout this community, which is a program that should and will be should be continued. So there was a purpose for the zoning. Now, when Medline came in, Medline is a family-owned company. They are owned. They do employ people. Now, I know people may scoff at warehouse jobs, but there are management jobs. There are a variety of jobs from Medline. And if you go to the facility, you look at the people there, and you look at the diversity of the folks that work in this facility that are able to not only make a living, but also get health care and benefits, that is a positive. So, I mean, you want to have